Hi everyone and welcome to something a bit new on the channel. We normally do match day vlogs as you know, but with the massive news that Pompey Women have gone semi-professional this week, I felt it might be an opportunity to get an interview with Pompey Women manager Jay Sadler and give him an opportunity to answer some questions from fans about the going semi-pro and exactly what that means. So massive thanks to Jay for his time. I've put timestamps along the bottom, and the questions in the description of the video. So if there's certain questions you're more interested in, you can just skip to those timestamps, or if you want, you can watch the whole thing. It's up to you. Yeah, delighted to be joined by Pompey Women manager Jay Sadler. Jay, thanks for joining me.
No, pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Huge week for football, for women's football in Portsmouth and for Pompey Women. Loads of questions. I mean, as soon as the announcement was made, my DMs and my WhatsApp went crazy. People assuming that maybe I know stuff. I thought I knew nothing. Tried to stay out of it because I like to be surprised the same as everyone else, and I think like if you know too much, it kind of ruins that. So it's a really nice surprise for me. We talked about it a lot on the radio when I did the commentary for the Fratton game. They asked me what I felt was needed to move the club forward, and we talked all about moving to a semi-pro model. So to announce that is absolutely huge. So you joined us tonight, got a few questions for you, so should we get cracking?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so the first question then, why has the club decided to move to a semi-pro model now? Is it a result of your fantastic season last year with us competing at the top of the division, or has this been planned for some time?
Yeah, no, it's been in the pipeline for some time now, to be honest. I think the coincidence of us having a good season has helped as well. But no, I think when the Eisners and Tornante took over the football club, they obviously had a strategical plan over a 1 to 5 year period. You see what they've done with the infrastructure, academy, men's team, and now it's bringing the women's team under their auspices and their ownership and their guidance, really. And I think the fact we had a really good season last year, if ever there was, the timing was right, as you alluded to in your commentary, if ever there was a timing that was right to invest and really try and kick on, we've laid some real solid foundations, and hopefully now we can use this investment, this commitment, not just the financial element of it, but also the resources to take us to the next level.
Okay, so when the announcement came out about the club moving to semi-pro, I think like that's quite a broad term. What does the semi-pro model look like for Portsmouth Women? Will it mean that all players and staff are paid, or is it more of a tiered structure where perhaps your staff and your senior players are paid and your youth players coming through maybe aren't? What does that look like for Portsmouth Women?
Yeah, so a lot of people will ask this question. What does semi-professional or part-time look like? So it's an increased level of commitment for players. So in terms of the training schedule increasing and commitment outside of football. From a structural point of view, every first team player will be offered a semi-professional part-time contract that will obviously link with the amount of hours that they're training and including the game days, home and away. And all senior staff will also be paid on a part-time wage. Our development team and development team staff won't be yet. Obviously, the carrot is there and dangling in front of them for them to essentially similar to the men's in terms of they're on a scholarship and then they've got to try and gain that contract really. But no, every player will be paid. There'll obviously be a wage structure and a tier system in place in regards to senior players and more squad and youth, but everyone will come under the same contract.
So if a player is under contract for the club and being paid, just to give the viewers, what's a rough week for a semi-pro Portsmouth Women player? What does that look like?
So it will obviously, we'll have the game on the Sunday, and then Monday and Tuesday are regeneration days. Monday, the players will do their own recovery from home. They each get sent out the GPS report and the data report, and they'll each get sent out a recovery program for them to do at their own gym, or we obviously have access to the training ground where the local based players can go down. Then on a Tuesday, we'll come into training, do a reflective session, kind of recovery for those that have hit certain physical outputs. Those that haven't will do a top-up session, and then we'll all come together and do a bit of a technical-based session. Wednesday, we kind of look at it as the start of a new week. That's our physical loading session, so girls and players will come down, mainly working on bigger pitch areas. And then Friday is our tactical session where we're all in together. So we'll have a little look at the opposition, look at strategies. Thursday is the rest day for the players after the physical loading session. Again, they'll be sent out upper body and core sessions to do in their own time. Saturday's the prep day. We send out a match preparation document with all of our set pieces, our game plan, the starting 11. I'll have certain chats with players and staff and make sure all the prep's done. And then obviously we've got the game on a Sunday. So it's still kind of... It aligns with similar models in terms of it is a full week, but we have to manage them with it being semi-pro. Not all of their recovery and their gym-based sessions will be in our care. We're entrusting them and empowering them to do it off their own back. Hence, we have to bring in the right character of player.
Yeah, you just to expand on that a little bit. I mean, I think I know this, but I think a lot of people probably wouldn't. There's a bit of a misconception about just quite how much goes on in the background at Portsmouth Women, even though prior to this we were a tier 3. I know amateur is definitely not the word I'd describe the setup, but technically it was. Just explain a little bit about how much you've brought the club forward in the last few years. So you talked there about planning their workloads, sending them out data about the match coming up, GPS tracking. That's all been brought in since you come in. So the girls don't literally just tip up at training and then tip up on a Sunday, you give a little team talk and they roll out on the pitch. Massive amounts more work goes into that. Could you just expand on some of the stuff you've brought in over the last few seasons?
Yeah, so we work off 3 separate departments. We've obviously got our technical department, which obviously myself leading that with Kim Stenny and Dan King and Lee Callender, goalkeeping coach. A lot of what their work is obviously to deliver a periodized program that links with our blueprint. So we've established a DNA, we call it our Pompey way of how we want to play, and then a lot of that is periodized into training programs. And then Dan does a lot of opposition analysis. So early on in the week, he'll dissect some footage that we get back, and then he'll relay some of the important information so we can construct specific sessions based around that. Also in the background, we've got our analytics team. So we have Vin North, who also helps. He helps with the software and the data in regards to that. And then we've also got head of recruitment, and we've got 6 scouts based in and around the south of England, based from Bristol, Milton Keynes, London, Bournemouth, Brighton and Portsmouth, and they go around and watch games every Sunday, so we can put together scout reports of oppositions, because the video footage is quite scarce at our level. And then also we're drawing up a database of players as well. And then we've also got our human performance side, which is our physiotherapist, Rosie, and we've got therapist interns as well. And we've got Ollie, our physical performance coach. We're hoping to bring in a specific strength and conditioning coach this year as well to help with the gym-based programs. We've got a nutritionist, we've got a psychologist, we've got a chaplaincy. So we've got all aspects. It's been a slow growth. Obviously, we can't do everything at once as much as I'd love to. Since my role's become full-time, I can obviously manage all aspects of our multidisciplinary team to try and professionalise and ultimately give the best care to each player. Essentially, that's what we want. We want to enable them to develop and support them in the best way we can. And then obviously in the background, we've also got player liaison officers. We've got dual career advisors. We've got everything you can think of really to try and professionalise the setup as much as possible to ultimately try and get success on the pitch.
Yeah, I think that it's just staggering how much goes on behind the scenes like that. I think last season, when I was talking to someone before a game, they described Pompey Women as one of the most professional amateur sides you'll ever see. And I think that's just a massive, massive compliment to what's gone on at Portsmouth over the last few years, from when you first joined. Just all this stuff like, when you got like the GPS tracking, and we were talking about, because I love a stat, you talking about all the stats you gather. I think 90% of people in the crowd at Wesley on a Sunday would just not know that's going on. Just would not expect it at that level. So, yeah, it's really, really good. Okay, so in terms of semi-pro clubs, quite a lot of clubs they keep their cards close to their chest. you get niggles from clubs that they might be paying players, but there's not this open, oh, we're definitely... Pompey have been very vocal with their announcement, very open. That's rare. Very rare. Do you know how many clubs are... You don't have to name them, but do you know roughly how many clubs in our division run a semi-professional model? And does the budget you've been given by Portsmouth allow you to compete alongside their budgets?
Yeah, and I think hitting a point you've made earlier, I think the biggest thing for us is transparency. I think you can see that with Richard Hughes, the transparency he's given as a sporting director recently with some of the outgoings of players, the transparency from John Messino and Andy Cullen in all of the interviews and the forums, and that's going to come across into the women's team. We want to be as open and transparent as possible. We know there are a number of teams in our level, probably 2, if not 3, that are operating on a similar kind of model. I don't know as to how much they're paying players, for example, but we know they're operating on 3 sessions a week or 4 even, and they're able to offer similar services or provide similar to us. In regards to the budget, I feel this will enable us to compete right at the top. Genuinely believe that. I think operationally, the football club have put themselves in real good stead through the hard work of a lot of people over the last few years. But this investment now enables us to secure players, to retain some of the top performers and attract probably a pool of players that we've never been able to attract before from leagues above. So we're hoping to obviously bring in some of the right people to take us on to the next level. But the foundation's been built by a lot of the players and staff that have already been here, and we feel it's right now. We were only 6 points off the league title last year, so it's just about making small improvements to try and gain them 6 points.
Every season since you've been here, we've been competitive. You joined. We started following the women's team, I think literally weeks after you joined. So we've sort of shared this journey together, and every season we've been competitive. We've been a joy to watch every year. We've made improvements. But in a way, you haven't always had a great deal of pressure on you, because I know you put yourself under a lot of pressure, maybe a bit too much if you speak to your wife, but there's always been the fact that, hang on, maybe competing for the league title is maybe punching above Portsmouth's weight a lot. And I've seen club officials say that, in a way they feel we overachieved last year, finishing 6 points off the title, even though the girls and you would deny that, saying, no, actually, we are where we want to be. Going semi-pro, does that put additional pressures on you to achieve with the team? And have you, the new board of directors, have they given you any revised targets that's expected of you now you're paying players?
Yeah, there's always going to be added pressure, whether that's from ourselves, from the fans, from other teams. They're all going to be talking about it. I think the overachievement was more last season, more based on our start of season expectations. We never went into it talking about winning a league title. All we wanted to do was improve upon the inconsistent year we had the previous year. So to be where we were in terms of where we expected to be was an overachievement, but knowing the quality of players and staff, we were right where we deserved to be and right where we wanted to be. And now, listen, the pressure is going to be added on. I'm going to be adding a little bit more pressure and expectation on every individual within our setup, because this investment, there needs to be a return on it. Obviously, monetary value, there might be a return on it in the next 5 to 10 years. We've got to allow the game to grow, and the Eisners know that. But obviously, they're going to want to see results on the pitch. We want to be a competitive team that can compete against any team. Last year, we competed against championship teams. Obviously, London City Lionesses in the FA Cup. We had one of the best head-to-head records against the top 4 in our league. So we know we can compete. We know we can do it. And I think the belief's there. But going into a season where the talk's going to be about, are Pompey ready to now compete and win the league title? Yeah, I do think we are. And I think we've earned the right to talk about that. But in order to get there, you have to focus one game at a time, and you have to work hard. And that hard work hasn't stopped over the off season, and we're looking forward to it. In terms of KPIs, we haven't had anything of note yet. That's something that when they come over, we're going to discuss. There's still a lot of processes going on behind the scenes, but I know they want us to be competitive. But I also know they've got a lot of faith in myself. They've got a lot of faith in the staff and everyone behind the scenes, even all the volunteers that have worked hard. They've got a lot of faith. Hence, there hasn't been drastic changes. There's been minor changes. Keeping Eric and Helen and Bill all involved is a crucial element for us, hopefully using last season as a springboard and being a top team in our division.
It's going to be new for you this summer in the fact that you've actually got money to spend, like a kid at Christmas. A whole new concept to you as a manager and to Portsmouth Women as a club. How does that change your approach? I'm guessing you can go on the front foot in the transfer market, where previously you were always a more defensive manager, as in like, how can I persuade these players to stay? Actually, you can actually go out and persuade players to come here. So it's completely different this year. How are you dealing with that? And have you already sort of identified the sort of player profile you're looking for?
Yes, I've done it the same way I've done it every single year. The most important thing for me is retention. We've got a lot of top quality people at the football club. At the end of the day, yes, they're players, but more importantly, they're people. They're brilliant characters. You know that. A lot of the fans know that as well. And we were only 6 points off. We weren't 26 or 36 points off. We were literally 2 wins. And we've already highlighted the areas early on in the season where we've dropped points. So we knew we've got a group here, and unfortunately, we've obviously had to make some hard decisions. For me, in 7 years, I don't think I've ever had to have them decisions with players before, when players have departed and left. And obviously, again, on note, I want to send my gratitude to the 6 that have left us. But that gives us a little bit of room to manoeuvre to bring in specific characters and specific profiling of players. It doesn't mean that they're not good players. We've got now a blueprint, and every year, in years gone by, we've kind of had to bring in players that we can bring in. There's only a small pool. There's a number of clubs that have all been competing for them players. We have to bring in whatever players we can kind of get hold of, and then off the back of that, we create a style and a way we want to play, or we adapt the system. We play 3 at the back, 4 at the back. We play with 2 strikers, and we played a little bit more direct at times. We sat off and counter-attack. We've adapted our style every single year. This year, we've got a DNA, a way that's worked for us last season. We've kept hold, or we're trying to keep hold of the players that we feel will suit the mould of that. And then we've highlighted specific areas where we need certain characteristics of players. So we've highlighted we want to bring in certain areas, maybe strengthen maybe 4 or 5 areas. We then have worked with our recruitment team with a database of players. There are some fantastic players out there, but a great player isn't necessarily the right player in the way we want to play. So we have to look at that. We've had some real positive discussions. But that was all post chats with the current group. So our aim is to retain probably 14 to 16 of the current group, and I'll be open to say that. We want to entrust and empower the group that we've already got, because they're good enough, and they need to believe that. And then with a sprinkle, a little bit of quality and a little bit of character, and maybe a little bit of leadership in certain areas. Hopefully that can steer us to the top. So we don't see it as an opportunity to make wholesale changes. I know people might look at it from that aspect, but I'm a sucker for loyalty, and there's been players that have been at this team and know what this team means, and I believe that they're good enough and have the capabilities of competing.
So last season it was really obvious that the majority of our signings were young players who were released from their clubs and needed a club to play for. You showed a lot of faith in them to bring them to Portsmouth, because there is quite a lot of pressure playing for Portsmouth. It is quite unique as a Tier 3 side. We have a loyal fan base. And it does bring a little bit more pressure, I think, playing for Portsmouth. It's a big name. But we recruited a lot of young players who were finding their feet in football. And obviously we therefore didn't need to pay them, because they're not at the stage where maybe they demanded money. This time round, you've got a certain amount of gaps to fill. Will you be looking to do what other clubs have done? So when you picture them lot down the road, when they were in the league, every season they would go to the Championship, pluck out the best players from there that they could, and bring them down to Tier 3 to bring their levels up. Is that the sort of thing you're going to be looking at doing?
Yeah, so we looked at a vision every year. It's really hard to build a 1 to 3 to 5 year vision when you've got such a high turnover of players every single year. But when all these talks started, which were roughly at the start of the season, I kind of had an idea that something was going to happen, and best case scenario, we were going to get the takeover in the investment. So we did change our recruitment strategy last year. We brought in a high amount of younger base players, hungry players, players with desire. We filtered through a lot of players that came on trial or came on an open session. We felt we brought in the right characters, people who understand what it means to play for this football club, because there is pressure. Portsmouth's a massive football club in the men's and in the women's game, and that pressure that comes with it, and you've got to utilise that pressure, and you've got to use it as energy to really kick on. And we felt we did that. And now moving forward, we felt like we got a real good foundation. We got players in that kind of in their prime, 24, 25, but we need to sprinkle a little bit of quality and a little bit of experience, but also pedigree. As you said, you need players with pedigree, players who know what it takes to get out of this league, know what it takes to be competing in a title race, know what it takes to be competing against the top players and in pressure when you're the 80th minute and you need a goal, have been in that moment before, whereas a lot of the younger players, and even myself as a manager, haven't been in their moments yet. So that's what we've highlighted. They're the kind of players and people we've spoken. First and foremost, they have to be the right character. We don't want to disrupt the dynamic we have. We have a team that is strong together. One of the Pompey values, I think we embody that value. And yeah, we've obviously highlighted a number of players, and we're working hard behind the scenes to try and get them sorted in the next couple of weeks.
So if you've got, so one of the main problems we've always had is you have players, you think of the likes of, it's unfair to name them to be honest, but you know the ones I mean. We had a very potent strike force a few years ago. They get offered paid deals from divisions, sometimes several divisions below, and they're gone. We lost a huge 40, 50 goal strike force to contracts of lower league teams. That's not going to be the case anymore because you're going to be able to hold on to them here. But what does a contract look like? Are they still going to... So if they're under contract, will clubs have to approach and potentially pay fees to get them off you if they want to? And are contracts normally more than a season at a time? In the men's game, you hear 3, 4, 5 year deals. Is that the same at a semi-pro level, or is it still only 1 year at a time?
Yeah, so I think the biggest point I want to make is testament to those that did stay with us. And that's not a dig at all. Obviously, I understand when players get to a certain age that they might want a monetary value or they might want a different challenge. We've got a lot of players that stay with us that had opportunities to move to leagues below and get a monetary value, but they stuck with us. They saw the vision. They saw where we were going, and now they're reaping the rewards of that. So we're obviously happy with that, and we're happy we've got a core group of players that have been here for 3, 4, 5 years, know how I work, know what the fans expect of them, and then they've now earned themselves the right to be a semi-professional player at the football club. So for transparency, the contracts will be 12-month contracts, so they'll run from July all the way through to June. Not only does that give player protection, but it also gives security for us. There will be no clauses in it, so I know there's a lot of talk around these semi-professional clauses where if a player falls pregnant or gets injured, they'll still be under our care. That's a given, and I've told every single player that. And yeah, when I spoke with the Eisners, there was a real... I know they've got a real thirst for developing young players, and it's something that Danny Cowley, John Messinio, myself, all the way through their kind of tenure, there's always been a will and a want and a desire to bring in younger players and to develop them and reap the rewards of that. Obviously, in the men's game, you'll see more player trading. That's a model that Brentford, Brighton are using, etc. In the women's game, maybe not so much now, but you might do in the future. For us, for them younger players, we can offer longer term deals, so 2-3 year contracts we can, and then that secures the player. That also secures us. If a team does want to come in, obviously it's going to be weird because you're going to have some teams in our league that are going to be working on a non-contract, some that are going to be working on contracts. So there's going to be certain stipulations that teams are going to have to get used to, but they'll just simply make an approach to us. In years gone by, we have to waive it or wait for the 7 days, and then they can transfer and move actively. In this, there'll obviously be a monetary value. So if a top tier wants to come in and get one of our players and they've still got a year or two, similar to the professional game in the men's or the women's, then there'll have to be a fee to trade players. So that could be a model in the future, but for us it's more about having security and the players having security too, so we can consistently build the vision linked to our blueprint and our DNA.
Yeah, I think the point you made at the start of answering that question is a really important one for people who don't understand women's football, haven't had much exposure to it, to understand that we've had lots of players, because we've been successful as a club, we have had a lot of players leave, often down divisions to get paid contracts. Like, we had some players leave to Bournemouth. There's absolutely no negative feeling towards those players, is there? Either from the management staff and from the fans. We totally get it. If a player wants to leave, go to Bournemouth, get a bit of money, so they can focus more on their football and better themselves as players, there's never been a negative feeling towards them for that, has there?
No, never, never. I still talk to a lot of them now. I wish them all the best in their games. It's really nice at the end, albeit you spoke about Bournemouth, for example, speaking to some of the players at the end of the game, albeit we lost. Yeah, there's a lot of respect in there, and I understand that. Different teams have got different projects. They sell these projects to to players, sorry, and then the players ultimately have got to make their decision. We've been selling our project, albeit it hasn't had a monetary value up until now, but we try to progress year on year so we can offer the players the best level in training, the best player care, but also playing at the highest level against the best players. But we've also seen players that have had an upward step, naming names. Jay Bradley, for example, who's just won the league and the playoff with Watford, and a massive congratulations to her. Yeah, you're always going to see player movements, but I think now more teams are putting investment in, and now more teams are having more security. Player movements will be fewer. Hopefully, then players can have set role models, which will be quite nice, instead of obviously aligning yourself with a player and then all of a sudden that player leaves and someone else comes in and you can't keep track of who's in and who's not. The amount of players that I've probably coached in my 7 years, but the fact we can have some continuity now is going to be brilliant moving forward.
Going back to the earlier thing we were talking about in terms of expectations, so it's pretty obvious to anybody that there's going to be a little bit more expectation now. We've had an unbelievable season last season, like truly unbelievable. What a season it was as a fan to follow that team. We had a lot of young players in the squad who, to be honest, had no pressure on them. There was no expectations of them, apart from maybe Sophie Quirk, who set the team on fire in pre-season. Everyone's like, well, she's got to do that all season now. But to be fair to her, she did. She got the player of the season for the whole division, so she did it. How are you dealing with how are you going to coach the players to deal with that, the younger ones, to deal with that change in mentality where you've brought them in and you've said, look, you've got nothing to worry about, just go out there, perform. Now it's like, actually, we need to be competing at the top now, so there is a bit of pressure. How are you coaching the players through that?
Yeah, and I think the expectation that comes with it is deserved. So I think the biggest thing for me is hats off to all of the players and the staff. They've earned the right to talk about it now. We finished 7th the year beforehand, and we had no right talking about being in the league with Ipswich and Oxford and Watford at the time. We had no right. And then last season, we beat them all in all competitions, and we put ourselves in and amongst it, and teams feared us at times, and that was good, and we wanted to compete at the top level. But as you said, a lot of the younger based players, we were going into them games with no expectations or with limited expectations, focusing on us, focusing on our game plan, and that all came to fruition, and we got points. Next season, there's going to be more talk, not only from other teams, but from other people watching the league, from fans. People are going to be expecting results now. So we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with the University of Portsmouth, our obviously front of shirt sponsor, and their head senior lecturer of psychology, Celine. She's going to be joining us next season. So we're going to be obviously working through a lot of off-field stuff, but also how do we add that into training? Obviously, the expectation and standards of training will stay the same. They're always high. Kim, Dan, myself, Lee, Ollie, we all demand so much of the players in order so when it does come into a game, they can fall back on the level of their training. But now we just got to work on certain areas psychologically. The game is moving fast, it is evolving. We can't neglect that area, and it's something that we want to work hard on to support the players. But I also think bringing in leaders as well, bringing in people with pedigree who've been there, and we can use their energy, we can use their experiences, and we can learn from them too.
I noticed that Clare Martin's going to be joining the board of the newly formed. So the way the club has sold it is that Pompey Women are going to be a standalone business on their own. Portsmouth Community Women's Football Club, I think it's called. Clare Martin, who heads up PITC, is going to be part of that board. Does that indicate an ongoing commitment to remain paired with PITC? And obviously they're trying to get the John Jenkins project over the line. We were meant to move in there. That's meant to be our new home ground going forward, and the project has stalled. So I just wondered if we have that commitment to stay intertwined with PITC, and what can we expect from the John Jenkins project in the next sort of 12 months?
Yeah, 100%. We want to be a part of that pathway, and we want to synergize and create closer links. I think that's something that probably I've neglected, or the women's team have neglected over the last couple of years, is really trying to forge stronger links. But obviously, a lot of our aims and ambitions have been on this announcement, and have also been on the first team. And now we need to look at embedding a real solid foundation, and obviously inspiring the local generation, the younger generation and the local community, to wanting to be a Portsmouth Football Club player. Since I've been at the football club, so many young players we've lost to Reading, Southampton, Brighton, but we want to offer something where younger players like Freya Jones, Mia Adaway, Jess Smith, just to name a few of the recent, where they want to be a part of Portsmouth. They want to represent the football club and try and compete at the highest level. So we're working hard with Kirsty Pearce, who's done a phenomenal job down there. I know there's a lot of plans in the works to try and enhance their development squads, from under 10s all the way through to under 16s. They've obviously got a growing BTEC program that's been growing year on year, and obviously offering football alongside their education, and that'll intertwine and link closely with our development team and all the hard work Molly's done this season there, with a real successful campaign, and then hopefully into the first team. So the pathway will be there. There'll be a proper pathway, and you'll see that, and they'll feel that. There'll be more collaboration with some of our first team staff going along and trying to support, and vice versa too. So there's a lot of work that still needs to happen. I won't lie, I've got to admit that, and I'm going to be doing everything I can to try and forge stronger links. But all the work that they've done, superb. Obviously, the John Jenkins, really feel for Clare, with obviously increase of costing and pricing. It's stalled that. Hopefully there'll be an announcement soon around that, hopefully pushing on. We're not too sure. We wanted continuity of a ground, and we've had a 71% increase in attendances from the year before to this year. We've built really strong relationships with Havant. The facility is one of the best in the women's football, in my opinion, for home venues. And we're building a solid fan base there. We obviously train there, so having that continuity is great, and something the football club have secured for the coming season. Obviously, once the John Jenkins is built, we'll obviously have discussions around that. We've obviously got a couple more games at Fratton Park, fantastic showcase games, and we're obviously grateful to Andy and Neil and all of the ground staff there, because we know the demand that comes with that pitch. They've done a fantastic job with that pitch, and hopefully we'll see a rise of games there too.
If Portsmouth Women are going to be a standalone business, that comes with expectations, as in you can't be making huge amounts of monetary loss as a business. How do the club plan to deal with that? I mean, they've literally just tonight, before we recorded this, announced season ticket prices, and again, they're unbelievably competitive. I think, quote me if I'm wrong, I think it was something like £34 or something for something around that. And £11 for under 17 season tickets. That's absolutely ludicrous. And I know when I tell people that, they sort of laugh, say, well, you would say that, Ian, because you promote the women's team. That's ridiculously good value for money. But as a business, will the club potentially look to increase them in the future? Or maybe on a more positive spin, could we potentially see a more readily available kits in the shop, women's merchandise in the shop? Because the kits in the last few years have been really hard to get hold of. Definitely the minty one, which was unbelievably popular, you just couldn't get it. Is there going to be any difference, and how are we going to move forward with that side of the club?
Yeah, so I think that the two main things are sustainability and growth, and how they work hand in hand. So one of my operating pillars, albeit my role stays as head coach, and the responsibilities, they stretch even further. So I'll be working closely with the financial team, working closely with head of marketing, Matt Barker, Lawrence, and also Mark Judges, who's just come in as head of revenue. And he's had a fantastic track record of supporting women's sport and seen a massive growth out with Surrey Cricket. So there's a lot of work that's going on behind the scenes that I'm being involved in as well. Sustainably, we've obviously got some fantastic sponsors that have continued again for next season, and we're really proud of the monetary value we get with them, and also what they give us and what they bring us, not just in terms of the finance, but in terms of the connections we have with them. And that allows us to operate. That's our operational budget. So our facilities, our kit, travel, medical cover, you name it. And then this new investment obviously comes in separate from the men's budget, and that enables us then to attract players and retain players. In regards to kicking on and growing, obviously, as you said, I think from what I've seen on social media, we're still one of the cheapest season ticket prices in tiers 3 and tiers 4 for existing customers. Obviously, newer fans, for example, that are coming in as well. There's a slight increase, but our aim is to try and get more people through the gates. It's supply and demand. We don't want to price anyone out of it. At the end of the day, the game still deserves a value because it's a good football. It's just, do you know what I mean? You've got 22 players that are fighting and have a desire and a will, and that the product deserves respect. So we don't want to demean that, but being able to come along and try and get as many fans as possible coming to commit and support and watch is obviously big for us. And then when it comes into the merchandise, I know there's a lot of talk going on between the club shop to try and make it more accessible for women, for younger players, for girls. So we need to look at that too. Obviously, it's down to what sells as well in the club shop, but hopefully we'll start to see more productivity. Hopefully start to see more of the girls getting involved with some of the modelling, some of the stuff like that moving forward, because there's a real synergy now between the two clubs. I know we kept talking about a tagline of one club, or one club, two teams, or two teams, one club. I'm feeling it. I'm seeing it. I'm a part of it every single day, and hopefully we're going to start to see some of that coming out in the coming weeks.
Yeah, the two teams, one club thing is it's an interesting and there's a big story to go with that tagline. That was a tagline started many years ago. Remember when we beat them lot down the road in the cup final at Alton? Do you remember that cup final? It was started there as a tagline to basically stop the women's team going under and to try and bring the men's and women's teams, as Mick and Anne were leaving, trying to bring them closer together to make sure the women's team didn't go under. And to me, I was around on that day, and we've got it on our flag from that. I literally got it put on our flag the week after that cup final, and that flag's still on Wesley Park on a match day now. It's crazy to think that tagline was initially used to try and save the women's team, but is now being used to promote the fact that we're semi-professional, and that blows my mind, that how far we've come in such a short amount of time. It's absolutely brilliant. In terms of fans, you mentioned fans there. We've got some unbelievable fans, haven't we? You think of the Minty Army boys. I won't call them the old boys. I just did. They'll kill me for that. The Minty Army boys stretch from Lee Park all the way to Bulgaria. They follow the team home and away every week. We have Abby and James. They're there every week. Will, he's there. Just to name a few people that are there all the time. Chris, you know the people I'm talking about. They're there every week. How important is people like that? Because I think a lot of players, they can't believe these people. I mean, the amount of time we've had new signings come up to us and say, you guys are crazy. You're crazy. You're here every week home and away. How important is it that we try and increase our fan base? What does it mean to the players on a match day when they go away from home? You went to Nottingham. We had, I think, God knows how many hundreds of Pompey fans turned up at Nottingham. How big is that for you as your staff and the players to have that sort of fan base home and away?
Yeah, and we've also got the Chivertons. You can't forget them. They've been coming. But no, you're right. When you look at the hardcore group, you can call them that, follow us home and away every game. It gives us energy. It simply does. It gives me goosebumps to think we've got hardcore fans that follow us home and away. And we want to repay them and we want to excite them. That's the biggest thing we keep talking about. Is how do we excite you? Obviously, one of the games last season, Ricky, I think we did that.
What a game that was. Yeah.
But I think the fans behind the goal dragged that goal in the back of the net. And there's very few teams that can do that. Pompey are one of those teams. Everyone talks about the Fratton end with the men's. But even with the women's, the more fans we have, we feel the energy. Look at the last game of the season in front of 1,500 people at Fratton Park. You hear the noise, you hear the play up Pompey. And it means so much to us. But also so does the conversations at the end of the game, the interactions. You look at Ali Hall having a chat with a local fan and the local young girl talking about her inspiration and her aspirations of becoming a Pompey player. And that's what we want to do. We want to ignite and we want to inspire all the generation of fans, from the younger kids all the way to the old boys, or the Minty Army as we call them. But it's pride and it's passion. I'm so proud of the fans that we have. Hence, we want to mingle as much as we can. We want to give them and give you all something back for all of the hours and the sacrifice you make. But building upon that, we've seen a lot of new fans coming through the gate, a lot of different demographic, people that have probably never been to a football match before, girls that have never been to Fratton Park before, and we're trying to break the mold. We're looking into, we're working closely with the Sikh community at the minute, who have never been to football. How do we break these different communities to try and give them a taste of football and give them a taste of Pompey? Because there's a real family feel, a sense of belonging, and we want every community and every person in the city to embody that and to feel that and to embrace that. And we're doing everything we can to try and bring in as many people. And I know the football club are doing it with competitive prices. We're trying to do it with the football and the interaction and the engagement. And hopefully, even if the fan base continue to grow and grow and grow, that won't stop, because my gratitude towards everyone who's followed us from when I was there, even before I was here, is massive, and I can't thank everyone enough.
Yeah, I think that family feel, you've got a real point there, and I struggle to describe it to people, because I think unless you come in, and we do welcome everybody, like if we see familiar faces at away games, we get them to come and stand with us. I've seen, we've shared difficult times. Nottingham Forest away in the cup was heartbreaking. There were tears. I saw fans in tears. But then again, you see Billericay was unbelievable. We had players doing fans doing Mourinho's me all the way along behind the goal. It really is special. And I'd like to say, like, anyone who's watching this and has thought about coming to games, get yourself to games, because I can't accurately put into words what it feels like to be part of that Pompey Women family. It is very something special, and I definitely echo what you say in that. Get yourselves down to games, because it is a really special feeling. One last question then. Talking about the Pompey family, it's been a long journey to get the club this far. You're obviously one of the people at the head of that, and the club you'll always be a Portsmouth legend, women legend for doing that. Are there any other names for people that they might not be so familiar with, all the people in the background at Portsmouth Women? Is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to who's really helped bring the club to this level over the last sort of 5-10 years?
Yeah, I think the main one is looking even further afield, and Dave Coyle. We can't forget, he is, you talk about legends, I'm not in the same bracket as Dave Coyle, nowhere near. He was the man that brought all this together way before my time. He was someone that I never got to meet, and obviously is not with us right now. But if it wasn't for him, we wouldn't be where we are. And then off the back of that, you've got some living legends at the football club. Gemma Hillier, to name probably the most prominent of the lot, a Hall of Famey as well. Vanessa Rainbird, passing the baton on to Perry Northeast. I think behind the scenes, in regards to more recent times, massive shout out to obviously Bill Griffiths, who's been a club secretary, a nucleus, a rock. I've learned everything I know about the operational side from him. Helen Chivers, another one, who has been going through chemotherapy and still working and giving all her time voluntary to the women's team. Got so much admiration and love for Helen. Eric Colborne, obviously, he's been a rock. He's been our chair, and thankfully he's staying on as an active director. He is someone I have the utmost respect for, someone that I can pick up the phone to and chat about anything in life, whether it's family issues, life. He's always there to help everyone. And then obviously, more recently, you've got Mark Catlin and Anna Mitchell, who obviously saved the football club from going under after Mick and Anne Williams. Again, two people that put a lot of hard-earned money and time into the football club. And then more recently, Andy Cullen has been the driving force in where we are right now. He is a fantastic person, a fantastic leader, and someone who has women's football's best interests at heart. And then obviously Tornante for doing what they've done. And then finally, the final thing I'll probably say as well, and I can't forget, it's going to sound crazy, is my wife. She's the one who people forget that I worked for 5.5 years voluntary while doing other full-time jobs, and if it wasn't for her and the sacrifices and the commitment she's made, I still wouldn't be in this position right now. And to think that little old Jay from the Wirral is now a full-time professional manager doing my dream is fantastic. And I now will commit everything I've got, every ounce of my being to trying to get this team promoted. That is ultimately our vision. That's what I want to do. And I'll leave no stone unturned to try and make that a formality.
Yeah, the journey of you've been on personally is actually quite crazy, really, because you think that, you know, what your wife has to deal with, and she is a superstar, and always speak to her on a match day, and whenever we win I said, oh, he's going to be in a good mood tonight, and she laughs, and we know that's true. We know we joke, but it's true. I'm the same if we lose. But, you know, your children have, you know, they're Pompey now, aren't they? They've been born while you've been here, and they're growing up, and they're proper Pompey now as well, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they are. Freddie goes to my eldest goes to every single home men's and women's game. Pompey is in his blood. That is his bedroom is full of Pompey. Obviously, I'm Liverpool from where I was from, but I'm an adopted Pompey fan now. I think that's one of the first results I look for. My wife made that clear to me when Liverpool and Portsmouth were playing on a Tuesday night. I think we were, and my first response was, "How are the men getting on?" She was like, "What about Liverpool?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, they're still playing." It's just ingrained in your being. This football club it's more than a football club. It literally, as Neil Allen said,
it gets under your skin, doesn't it?
It's the beating heart of the city. It gets under your skin, and there's nothing like it. I genuinely can't describe it. When I go back home and I tell all my mates, I can't describe it to them. Like, come down and feel for yourself. And I've embodied the Pompey spirit, and I get it. And I don't want to go anywhere. I want to have as much success with the women's team as possible. I want to see the men's team have so much success, because the fan base down here is like none other. It genuinely is, whether it's for the men's, for the women's. They are well and truly Pompey.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for your time today, and I think the points that we've discussed will go a long way to help just add a bit of meat to the bones, I think, of how big this announcement is and what it means to everyone. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at pre-season.
Absolute pleasure. No worries. See you later.
Cheers.